All right. So speaking of the forums of OrlandoDrummer.com, I had a really interesting post that came in a week or two ago from brother Rod Kaler, and he's a member of OrlandoDrummer.com, and he made a post in the forums here that I really liked. And, I sat on this for a week or two before answering, but I loved this conversation. I love the topic. He hasn't written me back yet, so Rod, if you're seeing this, I'm excited to hear what you have to say to my response, which is a bit abstract here. But so I just wanted to read you his sort of proposition here, and then my answer to it. And I thought this would be an awesome way to close out the podcast. So if you want to read this full thing, I'll put the link in the description. It is in the forums of OrlandoDrummer.com, which you can actually read, as a non-member. You have to be a member to participate in the forum, but you can read and check out some of these posts here. So this is from brother Rod. He says, Adam, I had a strong passion for drumming in my teens and have played off and on since, but life got in the way and the passion faded, and yet here I am. I avoided a beginner kit because I have the resources to buy better, and I wouldn't describe myself as just starting out. As such, I have a DW Design and a Gretsch Renown. I figured the quality and the sound would keep me interested as long as I was making progress. The former is a 3-piece, the latter a 4. I'm not good enough to create music on anything larger just yet. Influences include Lombardo, a humble guy, Ehrlich, yep, that guy, Pert, I love how intentional he played, Lee, the man can groove and he attacks the kit like the guys he mimics the most, Bonham and Rudd. Copeland, the most entertaining personality in drums and reggae hi-hat master. McBrain, Salt of the Earth, genuine guy, great fills and galloping style. And the man who inspired it all and gets no love, Alex Van Halen. I'm not an actual fan of the band so much as I loved watching him play when I was 12 or so. As I matured, I started to appreciate Bonham, Steve Smith, Vinny, Omar, Coleman, Mullen, and the new crop of technicians, which would include you. Talking about me. Thanks, brother. I went from loving speed and power to technique, clarity, articulation, and finesse. The problem I'm having is honing and thus focusing on what style suits me best. I don't think it's an impossible question. Pert could not have played in Zepp, and Bonham could not have played in Rush. The greatest arguments are a complete waste of time. You play what the music requires while understanding your limitations, as we are not all gifted equally. Music is emotive more than anything else, and as such, has got to come from within you. I'm not a J.S. Bach nor Buddy Rich, and won't pretend to be that gifted. There isn't a Shakespeare in all of us waiting to come out. For most, the book within us should stay exactly where it is. Ha ha. So how does one choose what suits him best? It's like martial arts. Guys usually specialize in one discipline while dabbling in others, like a kickboxer taking Greco-Roman wrestling classes. He may wrestle somewhat adequately, but do not stand in front of him. How do you know what suited you best? Is it worth the long years of honing skills that you may not possess the knack for doing? I know repetition is the cure, but it's helpful for me to choose 1 or 2 genres and then focus on those. Sorry for the book, and cheers. All right, and here's my response to Brother Rod. It's a long one. Buckle up. Hey Rod, this is quite an interesting post and one that I wanted to sit on before responding. You said a number of things that I wholeheartedly agree with and a handful of things that I do not. Let me first clarify by saying that musically, philosophically, and practically, I am an individualist. I believe in the army of you, your innate natural abilities, whether cognitive, artistic, emotional, etc. There is no other like you, and any attempt to recreate the entity that is you, Rod, would be an utter failure. Now, I say all that because I'm reading a tremendous amount of names listed in your post. 16 drummers you've named, if I'm not mistaken. That's a whole lot of talking about people who are not you. And that's not to say that you cannot or should not have influences. Each drummer you mentioned has given great gifts to the drumming community, and I'm certain that we share a gratitude and a respect for their works. We all stand on their shoulders, and there is no way around that. However, it seems to me that you're seeking to find which of their jackets might best fit you. And the answer to that, my friend, is that each one of their jackets fits you like total shit. The catch is, they all had custom-made jackets. Individuals like the 16 drummers that you've mentioned were those whose voices stood out. What they said had meaning, purpose, intent, and a hefty dose of individuality. If it didn't have the latter, individuality, you would call them a phony and likely exclude them from your list of greats. Whether or not we realize it, we tend to dislike those who do not behave as individuals, and we all gravitate towards those who are more individualistic. If there's a single common thread between each musician that you named, it's that they were all uniquely individualized in their play style. And this isn't the hardest point to land because it applies to everyone, but my point being, they were hopelessly themselves. They were not collective lists of those who influenced them. At a certain point in time, they began to speak as individuals through their instrument. That very speech, the individualized human expression, is precisely what you love and remember about them. And I really like your MMA analogy. I do think it's a valid point here. Some people choose to be the specialist and focus in on a very specific skill set, which makes them a formidable, hyper-individualized opponent. You can do this on the drums. It's the same thing. And others choose to be a jack of all trades and balance their skill sets as to become formidable to a wider range of opponents. Same thing. You can do this on the drums as well. MMA and music aren't very different here in that there is no one correct path to choose. Killers across the board have made varying decisions at these very crossroads, and superstars emerge from each end of the path. Sure, it's a particular customization of the jacket, but it doesn't seem to matter which way you go. It's mere preference, like a color or a fabric. For me, this type of thinking led me down the path of truly just playing what I want to play. And I know that sounds oversimplified, but it is actually that simple for me. Now, that doesn't mean that I disregard my influences or pretend that I don't have any influences. I do play some things because I saw somebody else play them, and that influenced me. But this does mean that I actively reject the guardrails or the metaphorical boxes that musicians will often place themselves within. Choosing a genre, for example, is one of those early boxes that drummers can place themselves in, a needless distinction that many of us grow out of with time. This would be something along the lines of saying, I have to choose if I'm going to be a rock drummer or a jazz drummer. And again, it's a distinction that you hopefully grow out of. For example, a young MMA fighter may feel that they need to decide whether or not they're going to be a kickboxer, a wrestler, or a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu master. The reality is, you don't know until you get in the gym. You don't yet have the authority to make such a claim before the work has been done. Your strengths and your weaknesses will emerge in training, not before. And as you begin to put in the work, your style takes shape. It will inevitably be a style that you could not have described with any level of accuracy before going through the process itself. So the guy standing in the parking lot of the gym doesn't get to tell you what kind of fighter or what kind of athlete he is. He does not know yet, and he can't make that claim. He is styleless for the time being. However, if he does make such a claim as to know his own style, this comes with the implication that he can simply determine, decide, or even construct his own style before he has truly crafted it. I don't find this to ever be the case in reality. For me, it's as though your musical identity can only be formed in the trenches. The practice of practicing is where the answer to your question can be found. Don't get me wrong, there is malleability on the top end of this. You do get to shape your style to some degree, and you do have the ability to follow whichever musical path you choose, just like the fighter can be inclined or drawn to a specific style. Much of this malleable portion of your musical identity will be determined by the drummers who influence you, just like the young fighter who looks up to legends of the sport. But ultimately, it is my belief that you are uncovering your own style, which is innate. To some degree, it's natural. There's something already built in, and you are uncovering that. You're discovering something within you that already exists. Any attempts to determine that style by means of other drummers, metaphorical boxes, genre, or even historical references will result in a relative failure. You aren't acquiring your style from others. You aren't building your style from mere components that you gather from the world. You aren't decoding the secrets of the greats and then adopting them as your own. You may speak their language, but your voice will never be theirs. And the best part is, their voices will never be yours. If they spent their entire career seeking to mimic you, adopt your mannerisms, or otherwise assume the musical identity that is Rod, all 16 of them would fail miserably. How cool is that? You are you, and that's that. Finding you, however, is usually on the other side of a bunch of really difficult shit. And it's only when you decide to swim in that difficult shit that you start to get a decent view of the picture that is your musical identity. This website that you've paid for is in fact one large pile of difficult shit under the domain of drumming. I hope that swimming through it will better serve to answer this question of your musical identity. An answer that I anticipate will be painfully, mystically, and beautifully individualized. Any answer that is not those things is improperly formed, likely unearned, or merely incorrect. This is the best answer I've come up with in my measly 3 decades, and I hope it wasn't too abstract for you, Rod. I appreciate it, brother. And we're going to go out on that.
No words.
Boom. Awesome. Thank you guys for listening. Much appreciated. We will catch you next week.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for watching this clip. If you enjoyed it and you're looking for more content like this, or if you're just looking to make yourself a better drummer, I think I can help. At the link in the description, you can start a 7-day free trial to my online drum school. It is drum school in the style of Netflix. You'll find 160 hours of content there. Trust me, you will find something you like, and I would love to have you on board. I'll see you guys there.